Hi, I'm Brian. Welcome to Autogefuhl. We have come to an extremely windy hilltop just off the coast in Malaga to show you the Mazda CX-3. The way that these headlights have been slightly rethought through to integrate through into this grille. This grille now features 8 bars instead of the previous 7, and that makes it look just a little bit bolder on the road. This is a small car, so it's important that it makes a statement when you look at it visually, and I think it really has done. I like the way they come right round into these lights here. Now we have halogen bulbs here, but you can get them optionally as matrix LED on the top model. The wheels have also been rethought, and you can see that we have special wheels here. They go from 16 up to 18 inches. We have the larger wheels here. I like the way the angularity cuts straight into the side. And look at the way this window line comes straight down here in nice contrast with the fade out of this design line right from the front. That all just makes the car feel very dynamic. Round at the rear of the car, more of that sculptural design language, and we can see the nice way these boomerang lights have wrapped through from the side into the rear. Coming around the side, we got our first hint of some of the new changes. This Sky Active technology badge telling us that we now have new engines to choose from and a really good lineup. We'll talk more about that a little later on. Nothing too radical has changed back here, and I think that's a good thing. These proportions work very well for this size of car. It does make a nice statement, but it's not too big, and the advantage of this nice bold drop is that hopefully we haven't lost too much space inside. We'll find out in a little bit. It is a subcompact SUV, so what does all of that mean for boot space? Well, it won't come as a huge shock to you to learn. It means there's not that much of it. What you're looking at is 350 litres of load space. But given how small it is, I think it's been used very nicely. I like the way this floor lifts up to allow you a second layer of storage. And if you look underneath, you'll see that we have space for tools, plenty back here, and obviously we have an optional subwoofer fitted in the back. We can collapse the seat down, and if we do that, we have 1,260 litres of load space. So the space back here isn't actually that bad. That bad? Well, what do I mean by that? This is a subcompact SUV, so you wouldn't expect it to be massively roomy. This seat has been set for Jonas to sit in front, and he is well over 6 foot. I have very short legs. I'm 5'10" in height, or 178 centimeters, and as you have a look at my head right here, you can see that I don't have a huge amount of room back here, but I actually do have enough. Pleasingly, for a car of this size, I can sit here in comfort, and if I was riding behind Jonas, I would be able to get to our destination, even if that was a reasonable distance. But I do have very short legs, so please bear in mind, this is not a car designed for large people, in the back at least. We are more than a little bit familiar with the idea of a proud display screen from other Mazdas in the lineup. Well, this one doesn't really fill me with much joy and happiness. It's got a matted finish to enable you to not get any glare off it, and I appreciate that. It is responsive enough, I would say, and I'm going to tell you that with the separate controls, you're probably going to spend quite a lot of time trying to avoid touching it though, because it just isn't, in my experience, a pleasant tactile experience to have. But what Mazda have done, which is excellent, if we swing right down here, is they have fitted an extremely usable interface for those controls. So this large cutaway radius analog display right in the center, well, you know, I may be a little nostalgic, but I really like it. It is very pleasing and easy to use on the eye. And either side of that, we have these digital displays built in a very similar style. All of that adds up to a very easy to navigate visual display. And we can change the information that we're looking at very simply using the controls on the steering wheel. Well, the first thing to note is that although the engine lineup might not seem to have radically changed at first glance, previously the engines that were available were all Euro 6. They are now Euro 6D. You might think, well, who needs to care about that? Well, at the moment, no one. But from next year, if you happen to live and work in Germany, you might find that you are unable to access some of the larger towns without making that switch. Now, this is the smaller of the two petrols on offer. It produces 121 horsepower. It's a 2-litre 4-cylinder. If you want to go with the larger one, that comes in at 150 horsepower. Or there's a diesel available, which is a 1.74 cylinder, and that will give you 115 horsepower. Now, beyond just the numbers, you also have a choice of either getting them with front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, and they come either with 6-speed manual or 6-speed automatic. So from our experience so far, this being the smaller of the petrol, and there is a surprising amount of room spare in this engine bay, it does have a nice bit of pull still. Yes, not a crazy amount, but it does handle itself very nicely. I'm really enthusiastic to see, once we put a few more miles on it, just how that manual gearbox lives up to the engine. The first thing you notice when you start driving the car is quite what a great job they've done with the sound insulation. For a small car with big wheels, it really doesn't make very much in the way of road noise at all, and that includes the amount of feedback that you get from the engine while you're driving. Now, we are driving the smaller of the two available petrol engines. That produces 121 horsepower, and you might think that that's a little underpowered for what this car would ideally like to have. And I have to tell you, it really does give you a surprising amount of pickup, and it handles very nicely. Our power is being delivered to the wheels via a 6-speed manual gearbox, and that really is a pleasure. I'm 5'10" or 178 centimeters, but in order to adjust the head-up display to make sure the information is exactly where I want it, that means moving it downwards to where the visual information sits exactly on top of the windshield wiper. And that is more than a little bit distracting while I'm trying to drive the car. Why does that happen? Well, you might have noticed from our interior earlier that the head-up display in this car has a secondary piece of glass to project onto. The reason for that in a smaller vehicle is often because the angle of the windscreen prevents you from being able to get the right projection angle in order to display the information. A secondary piece of glass takes care of that, but in a smaller car it often means that the information is displayed maybe not quite exactly where you would like it to be. You are up higher than you would be in a standard car, not a huge amount, but enough to make you feel really in control of your environment, and that makes for a very nice driving experience. But one other advantage that you would expect to achieve with that elevated driving position is great all-round visibility, and I have to tell you, this is one feature of the car which possibly could have been delivered a little bit better. All of that really fantastic exterior design comes at a price, and that means an awful lot of pillow when you're sitting inside the car. This car comes equipped with a reversing camera, and I can tell you, you'll be pleased of it, because you don't have a large rear windshield to look out of and get a decent view, and your all-round visibility while driving is not spectacular. But a lot of that is getting used to it. It's not a big car, and therefore feeling the edges whilst driving is not a difficult challenge. And as far as driving it around these windy, hilly roads, well, it handles very respectably indeed. And it still manages to put a smile on my face. Once you pick up the speed a little bit and you get into highway driving, a couple of different things happen. The first is that you're really pleasantly surprised by how comfortable of a drive this is. The second, which is not such a great thing, is you're less pleased with the fact that that road noise that was so great when we were going slower has unfortunately presented itself again. But Don't forget, this is using the larger of the wheels that are available, and that always makes for more road noise in the car. So if you go with a better, I would suggest, smaller wheel, you're going to find that you have a more comfortable driving experience and hopefully a quieter one as well. As far as highway driving is concerned, even though this is the smaller of the engines available, it still has enough pep and pickup to make you happy. The roads around Malaga are very hilly, and even pushing up some big ones, you can still maintain a good solid speed in fifth gear, and that feels nice. There's no denying that the additional height offered by this car really makes you feel much happier on a main road than you would do in a comparable smaller car. Looking at the available trim levels for the Mazda, the entrance level comes in at just under 18,000 euro. The car we have, which is the top spec, starts at around about 24,000 euro. As we have it equipped here, you're looking at around about 28. Now, I think the reasonable thing that I like about that is if you do decide to try the slightly more powerful engine, you're still going to have some spare change from 30 by the time you've nicely equipped the car. And I think that represents particularly good value for money. Now, how does it do with efficiency? Well, clearly that's really important for anything with a smaller engine. The quoted figure from Mazda for this car is 6.2 litres for every 100 kilometres driven. We have achieved 6.9 litres, which we've been pretty gentle on the driving, I think is a reasonable figure for this car. Now, that said, I would try the slightly more powerful petrol engine. Don't forget, we like to drive quite enthusiastically. If you are the kind of person who really just likes enough pickup to overtake as and when you need, I think you're going to be more than happy with the engine that we have in our test car. So what does all of that come together to make? Well, I think stylistically, you would really have to be quite a cold person to say that this isn't a fantastic job of design. Subcompact SUVs are relatively new to come to the market, and nobody's quite sure what to do with the styling in terms of precedent. I think Mazda have knocked this out of the park. This car looks great from wherever you stand. And this colour in particular, I think, really suits its character, so you're going to feel very happy driving around in it. How about the interior then? Well, that's a more interesting topic for debate. Some of the people I've spoken to feel that there may be too many different material matches inside the car and it's a little bit too busy, too much going on. For my taste, I really like that. I like it when manufacturers find new and innovative ways of supplying you with a bit of interest at lower price points. And the quality of the finish is very good throughout. Now, okay, I don't want to go on too much about it. That screen for the infotainment system, I don't know that you're ever going to fall in love with it, but you know what? You will get used to it. The head-up display, is it as well executed as we've seen that done elsewhere? No, of course not. But you know, again, compare at price points, and I think you're going to be completely happy. Who will this car suit? Anyone who wants a smaller car to have a lot of fun. Is it huge inside there? No. Are the backseat passengers going to have acres of space to move around? No. Does it have all the amenities you might want, like rear seat charging or a slightly larger boot? No. But you know what? Compare it to small cars at the same price point, and I think you are going to come away smiling. You tell me another car that you can buy that's going to give you this much fun at this price point and not leave you feeling that you're missing out when you're driving around and parking next to your friends' cars. And I think you're going to be quite hard pushed. So from me, that's 2 thumbs up, Mazda. I think that's a really nice job on the reimagining of the CX-3. But tell me what you think. If you have any comments or questions, please put them below. Please subscribe, and we hope we'll see you again soon.